Chapter 43. The Kingdom of the Blind. Are you not happy that your quest is complete and you can return to your studies in Canterlot?
Rocks! I can't believe this whole war has been about rocks. Gems? Coal? Rarity said something about a meteorite, but she got all evasive when she realised I'd overheard. Whatever. Like it was hard to figure out. Sometimes I'm slow, but I'm not stupid. Dumb rocks. I used to think rocks were cool. I mean, my big sister has gems for a cutie mark, and Pinkie Pie once lived on a rock farm. We even used to play games. Scootaloo, Applebloom and me. We found the rock that Rarity had gotten her cutie mark from, and I made Twilight Sparkle enchant it so that we could make it open and close. She kinda owed us for that whole smarty pants thing. We called it the Rock of Destiny, and we pretended that when it opened, it would give us our cutie marks. Twilight made it so each of us could set a passphrase to open it. Mine was, Dumb Rock, so I could pretend like it was my sister. I changed it to Apple Pie for a while, but then I changed it back. Just as well. My sister and I haven't been Apple Pie in a long time. Not since the ministries. I hope you don't mind me using your place. I mean, of course you can't mind, but I hope you don't anyways. Sometimes I just have to get away from all the noise. It's just so nice and peaceful here, and I really love your flowers. Anyways, I guess I'm thinking about rocks because we found chunks of that meteorite when we dug up Luna's old foundry under the castle last week. It was all broken up because they'd taken all the ore out of it and they'd sealed up the pieces. I felt kinda sorry for it. Ponies and zebras blame it for all sorts of stupid stuff. It's not the rock's fault, it's just a rock. And I kinda know what it's like, being blamed for stuff. Seems sometimes everything I do just makes things worse. So I had to make one of the bigger chunks into a cornerstone, as an apology or something. I don't know, make it useful? Yes, I know that's stupid, it's just a rock. So, I guess not dumb rocks, just dumb ponies and zebras. I came up here yesterday. Building the last stable in the Everfree was my idea, so I wanted to be here, especially after we started having problems. Rarity said the Everfree Forest is the one place she was sure the zebras wouldn't attack, so I thought, why are we putting all the stables in places we think they could attack? Doesn't it make sense to at least put one somewhere they won't? Yes, the forest is dangerous, but it can't be that dangerous. You lived here, and my sisters and her friends used to go into it all the time. Well, just another of my ideas that I ended up messing up. Applebloom had warned me about the poison joke, but was it always this aggressive? It's been really bad the last 3 days. Moonbeam says it's like the excavation is attracting it. He thinks that it's either vibrosensitive, which isn't even a word, or it wants to be near people. But that doesn't even make any sense. It's a plant, right? But then, Applebloom says you told her the plants want to laugh? How can a plant want something? I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling. I guess my thoughts aren't too coherent. I'm just trying to work things out. I think we've lost our faith. Does that make any sense? It's like something we're supposed to believe in has gotten dark and crumbled. Like the air is heavy? No, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Like everything is just too real. You know, like when you're just a filly and you look up to someone and they're your idol, but then you learn they're not too perfect like you imagined. But they're flawed, just like every pony else. Maybe that's just growing up though. It's like we've forgotten how to have heroes. Only worse, we've forgotten how to believe in each other. In ponies. Even Scootaloo. She's trying to fix ponies with all these experiments. I once told Scootaloo I thought she was trying to make ponies like they were when we were kids. You know what she said? She said, nostalgia is just make-believe. Isn't that horrible? I've started having second thoughts. Maybe we should just stick to saving ponies. Maybe it's not right for us to try to fix things. But then, won't it all be for nothing? Like Scootaloo says. I don't know anymore. Sometimes these experiments feel, I don't know, wrong. I know they're not dangerous. We've made extra sure. But I just don't feel like doing the experiments on ponies who are just trying to survive. Isn't that wrong? It's not like it's their fault. Not most of them anyway. The ones in Stable 1, maybe. I just want to save them and give them a chance. Kinda like the rocks, I guess. I even almost told Rarity about the experiments. But I didn't, because, well, I'd be betraying Scootaloo and Applebloom if I told. And I'm not sure Rarity would do the right thing if I told her. I really don't like the Ministry of Image. And if that's what she is now. Like I said before, we haven't been apple pie in a long time. Sometimes that little statuette of Rarity that my sister gave me feels more like my sister than she does. Today, I asked Scootaloo if Stable 101 could be a control stable instead, but she and Applebloom both insisted the experiment here was just too important. And part of me thinks Scootaloo's right. Like, maybe we really do have to fix ponies, to figure out what went wrong so everything doesn't get so bad again. But how many times do we have to try before we get it right? And what happens when we fail? This time, the cost can be so much more than tree sap and pine needles. Scootaloo has been looking at me funny. I think maybe she knows I'm having second thoughts. But anyway, sorry for all the rambling. Thanks for letting me use your place. And thanks for listening. Applebloom's right. You really are a good person to talk to, Zecora. We're all very, very sad about what happened to you. I hope you're at peace.
You better take a look at this. We all stared upwards, our eyes lifted above the dark silhouettes of the forest trees. The sky was a cloudy haze that glowed a hellish orange, lit from the fires that stretched for miles below. Our gazes were fixed on the massive black shadow, slowly moving through the ever-free fire sky. Brilliant flashes of lightning erupting along its sides. It was moving towards us. But we were not its destination. The overcast. This was a day too soon. Goddesses damn him! Colonel Autumnleaf was jumping the whistle on his own attack plan. My brother's on that ship. Calamity's tone was dour. I pranced in agitation. This was not good. Why the hell would he... A sudden wave of weariness passed over me. It had been far too long, and far too rough a day. I needed sleep. I wasn't going to get it. Above us, more lightning flashed as the four raptors moored to the overcast began to pull away. As smaller thunderclouds pulling free of the Thunderhead warship's massive ones. Two of them began to move ahead, while the other two flanked the mobile siege platform. Okay, I said, spinning around and addressing the others. Change of plan. I looked over the ponies, and Griffin, who had followed me this far. Part of me dreaded what I was about to say, but part of me knew it would somehow be this way. We'll have to split up. Before any pony could protest, I explained. The Enclave is moving on the cathedral now. They'll be there in, a few hours? I looked to Calamity, who nodded at my assessment. And we can't all go. Xena shouldn't be moved anymore, especially not after Lifebloom uses his spell. With a grudging reluctance, I added, and neither should the Hellhound. Velvet Remedy agreed quickly, staring back at her patience. Lifebloom was moving about Xena's bed, preparing to cast his trepanation spell.
Lifebloom and I need to stay,
she intoned, sparing me the task of saying it. She smiled sadly at Calamity.
And you, love, need to go.
Pyrelight, I instructed. Keep them safe. The Balefire Phoenix hooted, perching up straight and giving me a one-wing salute. I don't think I can do this, Calamity admitted. After all he's done, after all the ponies dead, I know Autumn needs to be put down, but I don't think I can. He looked at me, his eyes wide and hurting. My own brother. I remembered Pride's change after learning the Enclave had marked Calamity for death. That, in fact, Autumn Leaf, his own brother, had ordered my best friend's execution.
Then, it's a good thing you're taking me with you,
Reggie said flatly. Velvet Remedy gave a pained look.
It's a hard thing going against kin,
Reggie said.
To take down your own brother. I don't think I could have done it if Cage had gone bad. Nobody blames you for not taking that shot.
Calamity watched her check the loads on her guns. Guns he had custom made for the adolescent Griffin.
If it helps at all, you'll be putting a stop to his murdering ways even still.
It struck me that Reggie viewed those guns as a stand-in for Calamity. A way for him to be part of what he needed to be, but couldn't. Much in the same way she carried Gage's blades. So, little Pip, what's the plan? Calamity asked. How the hell are we supposed to make it through miles of fire, and whatever else Everfree's keeping in his back pocket, and get to Red Eye's base before they do? We don't, I answered him simply. I raised a hoof to the sky, pointing towards the overcast. We're going to hitch a ride. On that. Calamity, Reggie and I made our preparations, while Lifebloom's horn glowed, and he tried to work a miracle. We didn't have a lot of time. We wanted to give the overcast enough time to pass us by, but not enough to move out of sight. This is a stealth mission, I proclaimed, wincing at the groans. Hey, we've got this one in the bag. We've got 2 stealth cloaks now, I pointed out, counting the albino hellhound's cloak along with Zenith's. And I have the advanced stealth buck.
Which only works for a few hours,
Velvet Remedy warned. True, but we shouldn't need it for even more than that, I suggested. Once we get up there, we'll snag a set of Enclave magically powered armor for Calamity, and I'll take the cloak. Ah, crap, Calamity muttered. He dipped his head back, tossing off his hat. Can't be bringing this up then. He stared at his trusty black Desperado hat. Half of it was badly burned from the Buccaneer blaze. To be honest, it no longer really looked right on his head. In fact, it made me wince, remembering how painfully hurt he had been. I love that hat.
I'll take care of it until you get back,
Velvet Remedy promised, her words carrying a subtle insistence that he would come back. Brilliant scarlet light flashed over Zenith, then settled in a halo about her head, making her look like a sleeping angel. I remembered how she looked with bat-like wings the day she saved her daughter. The mental images combined strangely. Lifebloom was sweating, straining in focused concentration. Calamity dumped the contents of his saddlebags, which I swear took up more space in the hut than the saddlebags could possibly have held, and had apparently come to include several bottles and jars of desecrated herbs and dust that Calamity had scavenged from the hut itself. Insisted he wanted to travel light. You won't fight your brother, but you'll be taking as much of his ship as you can carry, won't you? Yep. Reggie, meanwhile, had decided she was as ready as she could be, and was leaning in the doorway, smoking another cigarette. Velvet Remedy huffed at her.
Yeah, right,
Reggie said with a roll of her eyes.
I shouldn't smoke. Might burn down the forest or something. You could at least show some respect for your health,
Velvet commented. Reggie just lifted an eyebrow, then waved a wing in the direction of the pony she had chosen to assist, particularly me.
Yeah, 'cause I'm well known for making healthy choices.
Velvet opened her muzzle, a retort on her tongue, then closed it again as a look of heartbreaking defeat blanketed her body.
It's too late, isn't it? About the smoking or me following you lot?
Reggie blew a ring of smoke.
Way I see it, if I quit, it would be like saying I made a mistake and insisted on lending a wing. And that would be like saying Cage made a mistake. And well, that just ain't gonna happen.
But Velvet wasn't talking about Reggie's life choices. She turned to me with a horrified look.
Little Pip, please, be honest.
Her voice was fragile.
The fire. How long before it reaches Fluttershy?
She swallowed hard.
It's already there. isn't it? She's already dead. Or...
My lovely unicorn friend could not bring herself to say that Fluttershy was dying, but it was clear from the pain in her expression that she was imagining Fluttershy, burning alive slowly in utter agony. It was too cruel an end for too cruel of a life. I couldn't bring myself to say that. By my best estimate, the fire had been there since nightfall. Maybe it was corrupted kindness to be dishonest about it, but I just couldn't tell her the truth. It would destroy her. I opened my muzzle to lie, but I was interrupted before I managed the first word.
Doesn't matter,
Reggie told her, drawing stares and glares from everyone except Lifebloom, who was too deep in concentration to notice his surroundings. Velvet Remedy stared, muzzle open, her heart tearing apart in front of us.
What?
Reggie looked taken aback.
Oh, wait.
She looked at us all.
You don't know?
Know what?
The fire ain't burning the trees,
Reggie announced. My jaw was not the only one to drop. She looked at us and shook her head.
Hells, it'd be easier if I showed you. I don't think you'd believe me otherwise.
What do you mean the fires aren't burning the trees?
Just that,
Reggie replied.
Got a good look after you all ran off and left me half dead in a tree.
As she said that, her voice was not accusatory. If anything, she sounded amused.
Red Eye's fire brigade pushed past my position. Saw him hose down a moss-covered tree with one of their flamethrowers. I swear, on my mother's name, that the flames went right through that tree, like it wasn't even there. But...
Velvet's voice betrayed her desperation.
But we saw the trees burning when we were fighting the Wonderbolts, remember?
She looked at me, and I could see the sense that she wanted me to tell her it was just her imagination. That Reggie was right, and there was nothing to worry about. I thanked Luna that this time I didn't need to lie. Those trees were burning because of the trick that Skydive pulled, I reminded her. That wasn't from Red Eye's fires. Calamity shook his head, looking at Regina. And you didn't mention this before?
Hells, I thought you knew. Besides, I was totally focused on the rest of the freaky.
The griffin tossed her cigarette on the floor and ground under a hind paw.
The tree didn't catch, but the moss on it sure ignited. Then, it began to heave and thrash and tear itself off the tree even as it burnt up. I swear, it looked like it was screaming. I'll have nightmares for weeks.
Well, damn, Calamity whistled.
The fire isn't burning Fluttershy safe?
Warring emotions racked Velvet Remedy. Yes, I murmured, my eyes going wide as the gears in my mind started turning again. I'd seen the reports of Red Eye's research into bypass spells. His scientists had been working to apply a bypass to some sort of weapon effect. The full details had been redacted after the research had been successful. Zenith had told me she had worked in one of the buildings where they were creating flamethrower fuel, but I'd never put the two together. At least, for now.
For now?
Velvet's voice was small, but hopeful. Red Eye ain't the sort to waste resources. Easy, little pip, Calamity asked, clearly following my train of thought. He's cleansing the Everfree forest, but he ain't gonna burn down the trees. He wants the lumber. I nodded. I could see a calculating light in Velvet's eyes. Her questioning had a timeline that she could see. Zenith had to recover, and they had to brew a remedy that would save Fluttershy, before Red Eye's forces finished burning the forest and proceeded far enough in their harvesting to reach the top of Killing Joke Hill. You'll want this? The Hellhound interrupted abruptly, holding up his zebra stealth cloak. His bindings lay useless around him. You're not getting it, unless you give me something back. There was a dangerous glint in his eyes.
What do you want in return for your generous offer?
Velvet asked diplomatically, as she pointedly looked at the stump of a leg which she had treated and dressed. Them blades! The Hellhound barked, pointing at Cage's Hellhound claw knife strapped in Reggie's belt.
Oh, hells no!
The young griffin flew almost within claw reach of the Hellhound, guns drawn, before she was yanked short, her tail in Calamity's teeth.
These are my brothers.
I figured they belonged to one of our brothers before him. The hellhound growled back, unimpressed and vicious.
Oh, just hold on.
Calamity came as close to shouting as he could, without letting Reggie's tail out of his mouth.
I figured we could just shoot your head off.
He shifted, pointing his battle saddle at the hellhound. Being an amputee had not made him any less dangerous. The albino hellhound was swifter than any of us expected. He had an arm around Velvet Remedy. His claws, sharp enough and strong enough to slice metal, right against her face. Their barest touch was drawing blood. Velvet eeped sharply. How fast? He challenged coldly. I levitated a little Macintosh in front of me. Let her go. Real gentle. Or, you are so amazingly dead, it won't matter. Astonishingly, the crippled hellhound stared down the 5 guns pointed at him and didn't blink. Velvet's horn flashed. The hellhound dropped limply back onto his bed, one of his claws slicing across Velvet Remedy's face as his hands flew away. Blood gashed from the wound, staggering her.
Don't shoot him,
she ordered as she stumbled back, holding a hoof to her face. The claw had barely missed slicing open one of her eyes.
Little Pip, your spell, please?
We'd used up the healing bandages and potions that we had left. There was nothing left to aid Velvet with the dark spell I'd been granted by the Black Book. Once again, I let myself draw on that knowledge to create a cast from Velvet's own blood, wrapping half her head in a ruddy mask. Calamity rushed to Velvet's side, shoring her up. He growled at the hellhound, and clearly really wanted to shoot the monster. But Velvet wouldn't let him. Instead, she turned to her attacker and spoke with a touch of sympathy.
I completely agree with how abhorrent it is that some ponies have made weapons out of your kind's body parts.
She looked at us with the one eye, not hidden under solidified blood.
And any pony here who doesn't should try to imagine seeing a creature wielding a weapon made of pony hooves.
Addressing the extremely pissed looking albino again.
So, in trade for the use of your cloak, we are giving you this.
Her horn glowed again, and then his hellhound claw helmet floated over and rested upon the albino hellhound's chest, ignoring the strangled sound of protest from Calamity.
But you will not be taking Cage Grimfeather's blades from Regina,
she added sternly.
I'm sorry.
She frowned.
And, for your aggression, you'll be spending the rest of our time together under the effects of this spell. It's never intelligent to attack your doctor.
Velvet Remedy stepped away. Then, her knees gave a little tremble. A moment later, she had dropped to them, breathing heavily, letting her panic wash over her now that the crisis had passed. Calamity lay down next to her and held her, nuzzling her gently. She buried her face in his mane, shedding tears born from the rollercoaster of hope, despair, and mortal danger that the last few minutes had thrown in my friend's way. The scarlet glow faded, and Lifebloom staggered, slumping to the floor next to Zenith. Pulling her muzzle out of Calamity's orange mane, Velvet Remedy immediately bombarded Lifebloom with questions about how it went. The only answer he could give us was weakly, "We will see. It's up to her now."
Then she'll pull through,
Velvet proclaimed, her breathing still a little shaky. She seemed to draw strength from caring for her friends.
Xana's a fighter, a survivor, more than you could know.
I discovered I was smiling. Just a little. Somewhere, some pony gave what sounded like a polite cough. I caught Reggie's movement out of the corner of my eye. She drew her guns at the speed of Rainbow Dash and had the twins pointed at the doorway in front of her.
We got company,
she warned, growling. Damn it. I was so hoping the Enclave would pass the Cora's hut without taking interest. I really didn't want to fight right now. Velvet moaned. Behind me, Lifebloom was trying to get up, but he was too exhausted to stand, barely able to keep his eyes open. Enclave? He asked. Pyrelight swept across the room to perch on Reggie's head, glaring out the door with her.
No,
Reggie said, wincing at Pylight's talons.
Red Eye, one of his damn sprite bots.
True, it made sense if he had some wandering this close to his home base, but I heard no music. Watcher! Wait! I called out, waving a hoof. Hold your fire! This might be a friendly. Thunder rumbled overhead like the steady beat of war drums. The overcast was passing directly above us, the massive siege platform blocking out the fiery light, reflecting off of the underside of the clouds of smoke. The flare was ringing Zekora's hut, seeing the shed even more beautiful bioluminescence in the deeper darkness. Colonel Autumnleaf was either oblivious to our presence, or he was too focused now to care. It's been a long time since my home felt crowded, Watcher was saying, with the mechanical monotone of the sprite bot. I couldn't tell if he was pleased or complaining. At least half of the people you asked me to gather have already arrived. Huh? Calamity blinked. Little Pip, you're asking a what now? We don't have enough time, I told my Pegasus friend bluntly. The Enclave is moving too fast. I can't be everywhere at once. Truth was, I was about to ask even more of Spike, and he wasn't going to like it. Don't you mean we? Calamity asked pointedly. My little pony scowled at me and virtually grabbed my head, making me nod apologetically. Yes, but that's kind of the point, I offered lamely. We need every ally we can get if we're going to pull this off. I know you still haven't filled us in exactly what this plan of y'all's is, Calamity groused. I'm trusting there's a good reason for that. There is, I assured him. Yeah, great reason. You would try to stop me if you knew. In the meantime, I've asked Watch to contact all the people we know who can help us start bringing them together. I'm afraid I have some bad news, Watcher said through the sprite bot. One of your guests isn't going to be able to make it. I felt an icy cold wash through my mane. The obvious implication was that someone had died. Who? I asked, the little pony in my head suggesting we really didn't want to know. What happened? Homage, Watcher said, and my world plunged out from under me, leaving me in a numbly cold void. Luna, no. The sensation was as intense as it was brief, dispelled by Watcher's next words. And nothing yet, but the Enclave has figured out that DJ Pony is moving from one SPP tower to another, hacking in to make those broadcasts, and they've started parking raptors above each of the towers, just waiting for her to make her next move. Thank you, Luna. Celestia, please keep her safe. A huge part of me wanted to dash off to her aid, but doing so could lead the enemy right to her, and I knew she would not approve of me abandoning the good fight just to make it to her side. Fortunately, the Enclave don't have enough raptors to spare for every tower, and she's not making it easy for them, Watcher explained. But their dragnet is eventually going to catch her. Not if we can help it. Calamity stepped up beside me, putting a hoof on my head. If I know little Pip, this plan of hers is going to pull the heat off of Homage in a big way. I gave him a worried but thankful smile. He was right about that. We had to win now. We always had to, but now it was more for than just a wasteland. Now, I was fighting to keep Homage safe. I realised how horribly selfish it was of me to place the safety of one pony as equal to the needs of tens or even hundreds of thousands of ponies. But I didn't care. Homage was Homage, and I was allowed to be just a little selfish when it came to her. Wasn't I? Homage herself insisted she can't make it. She doesn't want to risk drawing the Enclave to the rest of... the Resistance is what she's calling all you guys. Resistance Radio. That's what the 10 Ponytail residents had taken to calling DJ Pony's broadcasts. Clearly, she'd adopted the moniker. I'll try to have a sprite bot nearby so she can talk to us, Watcher offered. And she told me to tell you that she's sending some more allies your way. Allies are good. I liked allies. We could use all the friends we could get. Then, reality struck me. The blow hit me, cold and sharp and hard, nearly knocking me over. Part of me had been clinging to the belief that I would see Homage again when I gathered everyone together at Spike's cave, and that the final gathering before I set my plan into action. A final respite before I galloped headlong into my destiny. But Homage, the one pony I wanted and needed to see the most, wasn't going to be there. At most, I might hear her voice, speak to her, but she would not be there to touch, to hold, to kiss goodbye. My legs were wet noodles, utterly unable to hold the titanic weight of my breaking heart. I was never going to see Homage again. With a burst of static, the sprite bot started playing their heavy, ominous music of the Enclave. Watcher was gone. His time was up. I barely noticed. I was too busy crying my heart out. The drumming of the overcast thunderclouds were receding. There was no more time. We needed to go. I realised I could still hear the low horns and booming drums, the mournful tones of violins, the music from the sprite bot. It hadn't wandered away. It was watching us. I knew there was no way that Red Eye had been using these things for so long, having running operations in Philadelphia from a Ministry of Morale hub, without knowing that these machines could be used to spy. Grim resolve flooded through me, drowning out the agony in my heart. Not killing it, but just letting me not feel it for a while. I pushed myself to my hooves and strode determinedly over to where the sprite bot was floating amongst the trees, still within sight of Zikora's hut. Red Eye knew we were here, knew where to find us. I wanted to make it clear that that wasn't necessary. "We're coming," I told the sprite bot, sure that I was all but addressing Red Eye directly. "That's what you wanted, right?" The sprite bot kept playing music. I stared at it for a long minute, possibly two, before turning away in disgust. "Calamity! Reggie! Let's go hitch ourselves a ride!" I started to walk away from the sprite bot, then stopped. I trotted back around to it, my horn glowing softly as I announced, "Sorry, I have to kill you." This time, however, I wasn't addressing Red Eye, but the sprite bot itself. My pip leg was dead, and I was going to use the little spy machine to reboot it. My telekinesis opened the repair hatch on the sprite bot and yanked out its spark battery. The sprite bot dropped like a stone. Dead. Or the robot equivalent of dead. Sitting, I proceeded to disconnect audio and video feeds, then bring it back to life. A robot vegetable. Or something like that. Whatever. Stupid robots, making all my metaphors awkward. I looked down at where my pip-buck was grotesquely melted into my foreleg. Miserably, I realised that maybe it was for the best that Homage never saw me again. Let her last memories of me be before the Balefire bomb, before Canterlot, and before Abu. Lifeblue approached me as I was rebooting my pip leg. I assumed he was going to offer comfort, or ask a question about Watcher or the Gathering. I preempted the conversation, some pony else on my mind. "How did you meet Homage?" My voice sounded small to me. I didn't have the will to hide the sadness that was leaking into it. Lifebloom paused, then sat down next to me. "The Twilight Society assigned her to me," he told me. "They thought I would be able to connect with her." Leaning forward on his forehooves, Lifebloom gave me the story. When she was first gained residency in Tenpony Tower, she was in mourning. She'd lost the mare she loved, and she didn't know if she could ever find love again. He smiled gently. "I'm just happy to see she was wrong." That only made it hurt worse. My heart was bleeding onto the ground, and I could feel the tears building up behind my eyes. They felt like fire. Even worse, the little pony in my head didn't really want to hear about Homage's past loves. Of course, she had to have had at least one. She can't get to be as good as she was without practice, right? But I liked being able to pretend otherwise, even though I knew better. Even though I was pretty sure I knew who it was. Joke Blue. I wasn't going to be jealous. None of Homage's dead beloved. I refused to be that horrible. We were the same age, and I had suffered loss on my own that the others in the society thought was similar. Lifebloom continued, his tone suggesting that the society was in error on that supposition. He explained, "I was kicked out of the Republic after they discovered I had a preference for stallions." I blinked in surprise. What? The Republic. I remembered was the little town that the raiders from Fluttershy's cottage had massacred. A bizarre, cult-like group of weirdos, but not bad ponies, according to the Wasteland Crusaders. They kicked you out because of that? I was astounded. Since my youth, I'd been resigned to my feelings for mares lowering my prospects for finding love, but I'd never experienced actual prejudice because of it. I couldn't even fathom that. Why? Why would they even care? For the same reason, I reckon, that the Enclave rewards it, Calamity said, approaching us, his words prompting another, "Wait, what?" from the little pony in my head. Population control. Small place like the Republic, I bet they needed as many babies as they could get. Lifebloom nodded, frowning. And if I wasn't going to contribute to the growth of the Republic, I wasn't wanted. And the Enclave? I asked, driven by morbid curiosity. My pip leg hummed to life, the screen flashing status reports. I brought up my EFS and checked the most critical readouts. There's only so much cropland above the cloud curtain. All of it around those towers. Too many Pegasi means famine. The Enclave keeps real tight reins on childbirth. Officially, y'all are dead already. Calamity had told Tracker and the other Pegasi in New Appaloosa. By the weekend, the Enclave will deliver condolences and new birth approval certificates to your families. Being allowed an extra Foley is one of the perks Pegasi get for enlisting in the Enclave, Calamity admitted. So while there's nothing official, the Enclave has a little extra appreciation for those officers who won't be taking advantage of their benefit. I sat and thought about that for a moment, then shook it off like a wet coat. We really need to go. I stood up, looking down to Lifebloom. But when we get back, I want to hear everything you can tell me about Homage. He gave me an odd look. I'm not prying, I explained. I just miss her. Within minutes, we were soaring through the smoke. Beneath us, we could see the flames burning through the forest. True to Reggie's claim, the trees were not burning, although, occasionally, it appeared they were as the moss or vines clinging to them were cremated. We were all wearing scarves to protect us from the worst of the smoke, but it only mitigated the foulness. My lungs burned, my eyes were stinging and felt hot in my skull. Most of that was from the smoke, but not all of it. I was exhausted, even more so after hearing Watcher's soul-crushing news. It took massive, almost monumental effort just to keep my eyes open. Foot! I yelped as something struck my left hind hoof, a lancing pain followed by a burning sensation. I lifted it, spotting a dart-like thorn impaling the underside of my hoof. The burning increased. Poison. Foot! God dang it! Calamity hollered, banging sharply as the air filled with more plant spikes. A patch of forest vegetation was shooting at us. Goddesses, I hated this forest. The plants stopped shooting as the fires reached them. Calamity braved thicker smoke in an effort to keep us out of range of any more of the Everfree's hostile plant life. The fire in my hoof started to climb up my leg, aching painfully. But I'd suffered so much worse. Hell, I'd been set on fire by a dragon. Compared to that, hell, compared to the plethora of hurts from the battle with the Wonderbolts, the plant spike poison was trivial. We were catching up to the Overcast, but it was taking time. I held off activating the MG Stealth Buck 2, for fear that it would run out before we had secured a hiding place on the Thunderhead. I closed my eyes for a few minutes. I was using my levitation magic to make myself weightless in Calamity's arms. I felt safe there. I could close my eyes for just a minute. I was Rainbow Dash. The clouds were a beautiful white, fluffy, and soft under my hooves, and they stretched out forever beneath the warmth glow of Celestia's sun. I could see colourful Pegasi flitting and flying about. There was a town nearby, but I wasn't looking at it. I didn't want to. Instead, I looked at the ocean of white that rolled out beneath a canopy of the brightest blue. I was Rainbow Dash, and I was not a happy pony. Everywhere under those clouds was Equestria, or what was left of it. Everywhere beneath was a nightmarish hell, where those ponies unfortunate enough to not be in stables and not be killed in the onslaught were struggling and dying. And I was watching ponies fly about, happily ignoring what was out of sight beneath, what some ponies were beginning to call the cloud curtain. It wasn't right. Never mind that all my friends, all of them, were somewhere down there, and I didn't know if they were dead or alive. I couldn't just live up here and pretend Equestria didn't exist anymore. I could understand the temptation, true, but I wasn't that kind of pony. And it hurt more than my heart could bear that apparently the rest of the Pegasi were willing to be. I wanted to be disgusted with all of them. Instead, I just felt sad. I was Rainbow Dash, and I was ashamed to be a Pegasus. If this was what being a Pegasus meant, well, maybe it was time for me to go. I felt my wings flap, slowly lifting my hooves off the clouds. I loved flying, but today I could barely find the inspiration to lift myself. My head dropped low, my body hanging from my wings like dead weight. My hooves brushed against the clouds as I began to move. I turned around, my back to the colourful flying ponies. I took one last glance backwards, before flying away. I awoke in a coughing fit violent enough that Calamity crushed me to him to keep me from jerking out of his forelegs. Below us, we were passing over part of the fire brigade moving through an already burned part of the forest. I watched as a unicorn marched forward before a wing of red-eyed griffins, her horn glowing. The glow spread out over the ground in front of her, lighting up a large swathe of blackened forest floor. A moment later, the ground churned, tearing itself apart. The griffins swept forward with their flamethrowers, setting ablaze the tangles of blue vines that the unicorn's killing spell had uncovered. "Whoa there, little Pip," Calamity comforted. "You okay there?" Yes, sorry." I apologised, bringing my levitation field back up around me. Dozed off for a sec. "Yeah, I reckon when we get aboard, we're gonna find a place to lay low and you're gonna take a nap." Ahead of us, the overcast loomed closer. We would be on it within minutes. "You might only get a couple hours, but that's a couple hours better than none." I turned on my advanced stealth buck. We were getting close enough that all of us needed to be invisible. Reggie and Calamity followed suit, donning the hoods of their zebra stealth cloaks. A strange silhouette shot out of the sky. A dark figure, the size and shape of a pony, but with leathery bat-like wings that reminded me strongly of Zenith and her flying amulet, and impacted one of the raptors like a bullet.
What the hell was that?
Reggie's voice blurted.
Either of you two see that?
The raptor began to veer off, moving away from the thunderhead. I floated my earbloom into my ear and quickly sought out the Enclave's military channel. "Being breached. I repeat, we have unknown hostiles aboard." The voice from the raptor's communications officer sounded professional, unconcerned, even bored. "Disengaging from position to deal with the intruders." The overcast was still hours away from the cathedral, and attacks were already starting. I had no doubt that Red Eye was behind this attack, but something wasn't right. Sending a single creature against them wasn't going to stop them. It wouldn't even slow them down. And that meant it wasn't intended to.
Acknowledged. Raptor Lenticular. Rendezvous at the target as soon as you have exterminated the infestation.
I suspected, rather, that Red Eye was just looking to soften the Enclave up a bit before pulling whatever big surprise he had hidden beneath his cloak. "Lenticular to Overcast!" This time, the officer's voice sounded panicked. "It's the demon! I repeat, the demon is on board!" "The what now?" Reggie started to say something, but I waved a hoof for her to be quiet, which in retrospect was really silly since I was invisible. My attention fully on the conversation in my earbloom.
Overcast Lenticular? Please confirm. You're reporting that the monster, which downed the Mammotus is...
The officer aboard the Overcast never got to finish her question, much less get an answer. A loud whine tore over my eardrums, and the Enclave's inter-warship military channel became death. I buckled in Calamity's grip, my vision going red as agony tore through my brain and took a hold of my horn. I quickly shut off my Pipleg's audio, gasping and wiping blood from my eyes. Whatever was aboard the Lenticular had just infected the military channel with the Canterlot signal. by Luna's mane. We had run into the corrupted broadcasters in Zebratown. Even with Canterlot itself gone, any broadcaster that survived would still create a zone of malignant noise. Hell, I still had one of those in my saddlebags. It had never occurred to me that some pony might think to use one of those devices to actually broadcast across a normal channel. Fortunately for the Enclave, all they had to do to survive was turn their radios off. But this meant that they were about to fly into a battle against Red Eye's forces without any communications. The battle was engaged. The burning in my hoof had consumed my entire left hind leg before fading dully. My leg felt stiff and swollen, but the worst seemed to be over. The plant spike poison was far from lethal, at least not to anything larger than a rabbit. Aside from the earlier plant attack, the stealth mission seemed to be going perfectly. No pony shot at us as we drew closer behind the overcast. All the Thunderhead's dangerous magical weapons were pointing forward. We needed to fly up to a hatch, pick the lock, and slip inside. And with Calamity's knowledge of the Thunderheads, we found a hatch in no time. I cursed the Enclave, the Pegasi, and the entire concept of wings the moment I saw it. Fucking cloud locks.
Ain't gonna be able to pick this one,
Calamity said, his voice muffled. I wasn't sure if he was talking to himself or to me. Probably both. Rainbow! I called out as loudly as I dared to, this close to the overcast.
Dash!
Came the muffled response. Unlike stealth bucks, the zebra cloaks dampened sound. It was impossible to tell where Reggie was, but at least she was still close.
Okay, backup plan,
Calamity announced, just loud enough for Reggie, we hoped, to hear. We couldn't actually be sure where the griffin was, and had already resorted to call response navigating. I began to regret not using the rope to tie ourselves together.
We get above this thing, near one of the landing bays, and wait for some pony to open the door.
With that, Calamity beat his wings, drawing us higher. Below us, the hatch hissed open.
Coming?
The muffled voice of the griffin asked. I tried to exchange a look with Calamity, and, of course, totally failed.
Honestly, why you two act, you think little Pip is the only person in the entire wasteland who can pick a lock.
We were inside the corridors of the overcast. The thrumming of its thunderclouds rumbled against the hull. The vibration mixed with the hum of the lights. The hum seemed deeper here than in the Raptor Pyrocumulus, or inside the stables. More ominous. But that could have just been my imagination. The voices of Pegasus ponies were omnipresent in all but the most isolated passageways. The corridors were painted black, making the lights seem to provide stunted illumination. Coloured stripes ran down the middle of the walks, like an abbreviated rainbow, the paint reflecting the light that the rest of the walls absorbed, making them seem to glow. The coloured lines weren't solid, but they slanted breaks, and they would change, dropping away or more being added as we moved through the ship. I gleaned that there were some sort of colour-coded guidance stripes that would tell an Enclave Pegasus if the hallway they were in would take them to the section of the massive ship that they wanted to be in. There were monitors placed at intervals along the wall, each glowing with the Enclave symbol, an emblem of clouds and wings, with a pair of eyes gazing out from the shelter of an arch, green and purple and black. We moved quietly, holding each other by the tails, Calamity taking the lead. My hind leg made walking unpleasant and a bit difficult. Fortunately, sneaking through the boughs of the overcast didn't require me to run. I felt awkward and uncomfortably warm with Regina Grimfeathers biting my tail. I tried to focus forward, and immediately regretted it. It tasted like Calamity hadn't washed his tail in weeks. I knew that couldn't actually be true. Velvet Romney would never stand for that. But that didn't change anything. I fought a slowly losing battle against my gag reflex. I survived about 5 minutes and 2 floors, waiting until we reached the secluded stairwell, before I spit my friend's tail out and dry heaved in a corner. I felt Regina spit my own tail out, snarking,
Well, yours was a picnic.
If I was beginning to understand the overcast guidance scheme, the striping that flanked the metal stairs suggested we were midway between the barracks and the overcast medical bay, with a longer path towards the officers' quarters. I would have expected such a stairwell to be in heavy use, but it was utterly empty.
Hang on there, little Pip,
Calamity ordered.
I'll go round up me some Enclave armor. The barracks on the floor below, opposite the rec center.
We had skirted what Calamity referred to as the rec center on our way to the stairwell, getting a good look at it through a large set of observation windows. It was a large, 3-story open room filled with mares and stallions exercising, lifting weights, and even flying through obstacle hoops, all out of armor and uniform. A third of the room was a cloud pool court, and there'd been nearly 24 sweaty Enclave mares and stallions faced off in a friendly game. I'll admit, watching some of those mares temporarily distracted me from the concentrated disgusting in my mouth. Made sense that the ponies down here had their suits of armor nearby, but...
Alone? Into a barracks?
Reggie asked, echoing my own concern before I'd fully formed it. But then, she added,
How about we wait here for the next Enclave bastard to come down these stairs and take him out? I'll use Cage's knives. Real quick and quiet.
No, I insisted, taken aback. Fighting the Enclave in battle was one thing, but that was murder.
My brother needs to be put down, yes,
Calamity said sternly.
But most of these ponies ain't evil. They're just following orders. We ain't killing any pony we don't have to.
None of these ponies are innocent,
Reggie hissed.
Some of these ponies might be,
Calamity countered.
I don't recall the Overcast getting directly involved in the fighting anywhere yet.
That's not how we do things, I added, only for Reggie to scoff.
Oh, please.
Reggie repudiated.
I'm a child of God, remember? I know all about what you did at Shattered Hoof. You're an assassin when it suits your cause.
I flinched. I really didn't want to think of myself that way. But Regina was right. And I deserved the sucker punch to my self-image to knock me off my pedestal. Still mentally smarting, I changed tactic. Okay, you're right, but so is Calamity. We've already seen crew rebellions. There's a chance that many of these ponies would side with us, giving half a chance and a touch of perspective.
But they sure as hell won't if you start slitting their throats in the stairwell.
Reggie seemed to accept this. She fell silent. I moved amongst a few Enclave crates stored beneath the stairwell and lay down, beginning to drift asleep. Calamity, I assumed, moved off to fetch the armor. I couldn't really tell, but it was a safe assumption. But either way, he and Regina weren't arguing or bringing up unpleasant points of morality anymore. Peace and quiet. Time for a nap. Too quiet. Rainbow? I whispered.
Dash.
I woke up when Calamity returned with the Enclave armor, and, if I were to guess, most of the medical bay. Went smoothly, he said, slipping off the zebra stealth cloak and passing it to me. I reached out for it and realised I could see my arm. The MG Stealth Buck 2 had drained while I slept. Fortunately, no pony, or at least no pony observant, had used the stairwell since then. Wait, how long was I out?
Long enough to make a few trips.
Reggie teased from someplace nearby.
We figured we ought to let you sleep.
Reggie shifted her attention to Calamity.
Don't you think your brother's gonna notice his whole damn ship is missing?
I would have sworn one of the goddesses had a love for ironic timing. Before Calamity could answer, we heard a door open several floors above us. Music flooded into the stairwell, hidden speakers coming alive at their entrance, pouring haunting orchestral music with an exquisite cello performance at its centerpiece. Ah, hell! Calamity moaned softly. It's autumn. At my querying look, he explained, Who else would have the whole shit rigged to pipe classical music wherever he goes? I noticed that he positioned himself, wings spread, so that he would feel if Regina tried to pass him. I wasn't sure if he intended to stop the griffin, or just wanted forewarning. Voices echoed down the stairwell.
Again, sir, my deepest apologies.
The mayor said, almost whinnying.
I still can't understand how that monster got past us.
Teleportation, no doubt. Autumn Leaf replied, his tone hard. Two of those beasts that tried to breach Nevara a few years back with teleporters. He added, that little spell proved no help to either of them.
Sir, you know this is a trap.
A mayor's voice was saying. Of course I know it is a trap. Astelion's voice replied smooth as glass. Unlike Calamity's other brothers, there was no trace of his family's accent. Red Eye is calling me out. There is simply no other explanation for that. Autumnleaf's voice twisted in a snarl. Mental violation. My head was spinning. Unless I was gravely misinterpreting what I was hearing, I hadn't been the only one that Red Eye's alicorns had tested with that vile mental rape. Autumnleaf sternly announced, I do not intend to disappoint him. I now understood what pushed Autumnleaf to jump the whistle.
Sir?
The mayor pleaded, their voices drawing closer.
With all due respect, I believe it will be a grave error for you to enter the battle yourself like this.
I do not doubt it, responded the Pegasus, who had brought so much harm and devastation and death to the Equestrian wasteland. But there are some transgressions that absolutely require a personal reckoning. I heard another door open above us. If I die, Colonel Autumnleaf instructed, or I am taken hostage, you have your orders. His voice receded as the two ponies walked away. I barely caught him add, besides, Red Eye is not going to see this one coming. The door slid shut. When it closed, the virtual classical orchestra evaporated, plunging the stairwell into an oppressive silence. Rainbow? I asked cautiously. There was no dash. I listened to my ear bloom as I drank another of the healing potions Calamity had pilfered, blinking away blood-tinged tears. My headache and hornache receded, then disappeared completely. At least we were going into this magically restored to complete health. Even the swelling in my leg was almost completely gone. Cancel-out static from the Raptor Lenticular was still flooding the Enclave into Warship Channel. The fact that the Lenticular had managed to neither shut down its comms array, nor get far enough away from the Overcast to be outside of its range, suggested that the Enclave aboard had not been successful in dealing with the demon. I was willing to bet at least one of the other Raptors was still trying to hunt the Lenticular down, but without communications, there was no easy way for them to coordinate efforts. I pictured Enclave soldiers flying between ships, relaying messages. I had switched away from the channel as soon as I had heard it, but the concentrated blast of cancel-out static had still taken its toll. Now, I was switching through other transmissions. The Enclave's Hellhound control broadcast, the intra-ship classical musical station, all cello, all the time. Red Eye's broadcast, straight from the cathedral, Sands Towers, and thus free from the Enclave takeover. And finally, the normal Wasteland broadcast, all Enclave, almost all the time. Still no sign or sound of Reggie. It had been 15 minutes. I got a few ice-cold sparkle colas in the rucksack over there, Calamity pointed. That's almost good as another couple hours of sleep, I reckon. He turned to the Enclave crates under the stairs, opening the first unlocked one. Whoa, he whistled. Grenades! I began to dig through the sack in question, as the dour tones of fancy horns and kettle drums played in my ears. You really need a pit buck, I whispered to Calamity with a chuckle. In his kleptomatic enthusiasm, he had dumped the contents of who knew how many medical boxes and Enclave crates into his saddlebags, and even more into military rucksacks. If for the inventory sorter alone. The song on the radio changed. This new one was heavier on the string action. Ah, shoot, Calamity said, face-hoofing his armor-clad hoof against his helmet with a thunk. This armor's got one of those. Clearly, it had been a while since he'd properly used Enclave armor. The few times I'd seen him use his own suit, with the exception of a brief stint in Old Olney, he'd always had the helmet off. I smirked, about to say something witty, when I found the ice-cold sparkle cola. And, besides it, a couple tins of Mintols. I stared, feeling a moment of cold shock. Calamity, I asked, trying to sound casual. Did you even look at the stuff you were taking? Nope, he said. I could almost feel his grin through the helmet. He had no idea what I'd just seen. Reckon if Artem wants it, best I have it. Right. I looked back into the rucksack, my mind insisting on replaying the taste of party time Mentors, the feelings of incompetence and intelligence, the certainty. I took the ice-cold sparkle cola in my teeth and telekinetically zipped the rucksack shut, the little pony in my head echoing calamity. Nope. I got to mentally celebrate my little victory for about a minute before I heard a door open below us. A pair of lightly armoured Enclave officers strode by, trotting up the stairs. Calamity whisked his scorpion-like tail around in a salute. One of the officers saluted back. I watched them disappear up the metal stairs, following the line that led towards the officers' quarters without even noticing it. Once they were well away, I shifted my attention back to Calamity. "I got a question for you," I said as I opened the frosty sparkle cola, enjoying the little fizz hiss it made and the aroma of carrots and cola-ness. "Alright," he said, elevating another crate of its cargo, which, in this case, included some pony's wing-bone and magazine collection, 3 hot plates, 17 pre-war bits, and a copy of the pre-war book, Give Peas a Chance, The Vegetarian's Guide to Cooking. "Shoot!" Remembering Reggie's snide remark about carrying healing potions, I started to telekinetically fill my saddlebags with a healthy supply from the rucksack. "What kinds of defences does the Enclave have around the SPP Central Hub?" I questioned, before tipping back the sparkle cola and taking a swig. "Yay, carrots!" I knew that the hub itself had its defences, the most significant being the shield surrounding the entire structure, but those were not under Enclave control. The single Pegasus project was the core of the Enclave's grip on the Havens. Even if no pony could get inside the Central Hub, I had to assume the Enclave had guards, or at least some kind of warning system. "You mean Navarro?" Calamity asked. I almost choked on the taste of fizzy carrots. The healing potion I'd been levitating hitting the floor. "Navarro?" I asked back slowly, setting the collar safely on one of the Enclave crates. "Son of a..." Calamity nickered, giving a stomp. "That's your plan?" he asked, spreading his wings. "You want to take on the Enclave's biggest military base?" "Oh fuck." "The base, with the Thunderhead permanently parked overhead." "Fuckity fuck." "The base, where my father serves as a drill sergeant." Luna shoved my cunt full of moon rocks and called me home. The Enclave had built a whole damn base around it. "Stealth mission?" he asked, his voice betraying the ludicrousness of my idea. "Or were you just planning on a full frontal assault?" I opened my muzzle to reply, but all that came out was a squeak. "Yep, this is gonna be barrels of fun." He would have said more, but the sound of another door opening prompted him to clam up. We both waited, listening, striving to hear whether or not the pony, or ponies, who had just entered the stairwell were heading our way. Our ears were greeted with only silence. Moments later, we heard Reggie's muffled hiss. "Dash!" Calamity's wings drooped. "My brother?" he asked, hesitating to speak further.
Still alive, I'm afraid,"
Reggie admitted.
"Sorry, I got distracted.
Distracted?
I found out they've got prisoners here.
Reggie explained.
Any pony up for breaking them free?"
Calamity chuckled. "Welcome to the team." One Pegasus in Enclave armor, on a ship full of Enclave Pegasi, flanked by 2 invisible and virtually inaudible companions. If we couldn't pull this off, we didn't deserve the win. The Enclave music in my earbloom had changed again. This one sounded like a dirge. "Howdy there, partner!" Calamity called out jovially, as he trotted up to the mirror at the guard station outside the ship's brig. I so wanted to face Hoof. "Bored yet?"
"Hover and identify,"
the guard Pegasus ordered rotely. "Wind shear," Calamity lied swiftly. "Superior Communications Officer. Transferred from the Glorious Dawn last week." That was a dangerous gamble. If the man knew about the Colonel's family, using his brother's name and rank would give his story a sense of legitimacy. After all, it was understandable that Colonel Autumnleaf might want his brothers on his ship for this operation. And Calamity's accent lent credence to the claim. Would she buy a superior communications officer, wearing Enclave armor rather than the officer's uniform? I had to trust Calamity's instincts and Enclave experience on that. However, if she knew what Autumnleaf's brothers looked like, Then, not only would any glimpse beneath that armor tell her that Calamity was lying, but she would know his palette matched one of Autumn's other brothers. The one who was branded a traitor. The one that the Enclave was to kill on sight. Calamity's ruse could put the mayor in the perfect frame of mind to guess his actual identity.
Superior Communications Officer?
The mayor asked, immediately rendering my worries pointless.
So, maybe you could tell me what the hay is going on with Raptor Lenticular?
She gave Calamity an exasperated look.
I mean, we've got the ship's tag, right? And if the infiltrators manage to take it out, we've got the tags of every pony in a suit of armor on board. Why don't we just find the damn raptor and blow it out of the sky?
Cars, we have raptors to spare, right? Calamity chided as he trotted up to the mayor. The ship ain't turned about to attack us yet, and I reckon that means there's still hope our forces will keep control. As for taking it down, my bet's right for the infiltrators not actually having the channel for our communications. The control for the door had a cloud interface and required a code. Reggie and I teamed up to hack it. Her talons and my savvy, while Calamity kept the guard mare busy. He shook his carapace helmeted head. Nope, more like they're just blasting that necro noise broadband, flooding out every single coming from the lenticular, jamming the tags. Calamity whinnied. Hell, that might be the whole point, and screwing up our comms is just icing on the cake. The password was Fluffykins. I wasn't sure what to think of that.
So, is the demon really, well, a demon?
The mayor asked.
I heard a rumor that it's a monster released from hell by the balefire bombs.
I don't believe in demons, Calamity replied. No more than I believe in goddesses. Way I see it, we don't need outside forces to blame for making the world a shitter place. We do that well enough by our own hooves. I positioned myself behind the mayor and flipped off my hood, giving Calamity a signal. Reggie entered the code while Calamity kept the guard mare's attention. There was the faintest whir as the lock cycled. Our Pegasus friend moved up to the mayor, speaking more loudly to cover the sound. I'm sure the so-called demon ain't nothing more than just a pony, he said in a tone that suggested what he was saying was more than just his opinion. It was the Enclave's line, and the mayor was expected to believe it. Or some monster twisted up by the byproducts of the war. Reggie and I slid inside the brig. Before us was a corridor of cells, 2 floors high. Each cell behind a glowing blue force field, identical to the magical energy cages the Enclave had thrown Ditsy-Doo, Calamity and me into less than a week ago. The sound of weeping drifted through the air. Most of the cells were empty. Most. There were ponies here. Not just bucks and mares, but foals too. Some prisoners pacing their cells, others huddled on hard metal cots. They were from the wasteland. They looked filthy compared to the stark cleanliness of the Enclave vessel. I recoiled as I found the source of the crying. A mare cradling a foal, the colt's body limp in her hooves, having died in captivity. There were 2 guards inside, staring at a rear airlock, and they both reacted to the door. I thought I heard something, one of them said as they moved from their positions, looking about. I shifted, moving out of the way as one passed me, his tail swishing inches from me. Part of me wanted to draw out little Macintosh and shoot him in the head, point blank. He deserved no less. But the noise could draw the whole ship down on us. I wished I had Velvet Remedy with her anesthetic spell with us, or Life Bloom, or Zenith with her paralyzing hoof strikes. In their absence, I did the next best thing. My horn glowed, giving away my position, as I wrapped my telekinesis around their necks and squeezed until they stopped struggling. Reggie pulled back her hood and gave one of the limp guards a kick.
Help me disable these energy fields.
I pulled mine off too, choosing to have faith that we could trust the prisoners to not give us away, and moved to control the terminal for the cells. As Reggie and I began to work, I couldn't help but comment. If it makes any difference, I'm proud of you. You chose to help these ponies over your revenge. Regina Grimfeather squawked a laugh.
Ain't your approval I'm aiming for, but thank you anywho.
At my curious look, she sighed.
Cages. Wherever my brother is now, I want his approval. And this is what I think he'd want me to do. What I think he'd do in my place.
My mind flashed to the young male Griffin, buying a bent tin can from Silverbell just to make her happy. I think you're right, I offered. I mean, I know I didn't know him long, but From what I did see of him, yes, he would. Reggie nodded.
Revenge ain't worth anything if I dishonor his memory in the process.
She looked at me, a small tear in one eye.
He was always wanting to do stuff like this, you know? Me too, of course.
She hastily added.
But I wanted to be the hero. He just wanted to make something better of the Griffin's role in Equestria.
She smiled bleakly.
Sometimes I think he took Stern and her lot as a personal affront, and wanted to try to balance things out.
You! One of the prisoners called out. I rotated towards the voice and saw Tracker. The Jade Pegasus slammed his forehooves against the energy field, ignoring the feedback. This isn't how things were supposed to be! Get out while you still can, before they get you too! Not without taking you all with us, I said with a determined smile. More ponies were getting up, moving to the edges of the magical barriers, staring at Reggie and me with mixed expressions of hope and disbelief. Welcome to your rescue. The sound of klaxons filled the brig. I spun to Reggie, eyes wide, certain that some pony had triggered an alarm, and we were about to be overwhelmed by Enclave soldiers. Then, we felt the first dull thuds vibrating through the floor. The brig was close to the overcast exterior. I had a terrible inkling that the airlock was for easy, high-altitude disposal of prisoners. And we could feel the impacts of what had to be the cathedral's anti-aircraft cannons. Reggie returned my gaze.
We're here!
I'd never seen such disciplined and orderly chaos as the Enclave mobile siege platform in the heat of battle. Every Pegasus knew where to go, what to do, and they were doing it rapidly under the barked orders of their commanders. With the military channel down, officers had taken wing, brushing the ceiling with the tips of their feathers as they shouted down to the troops, and across the ship to each other. No pony questioned the apparently lone Enclave soldier moving with purpose, through the corridors and out into the overcast hangar bays, laden down with rucksacks. Where to, little Pip? Calamity asked. You'll like this, I replied from beneath the zebra cloak. You're going to steal one of the Enclave sky tanks. Good. I could almost hear the grin break across his face. The Enclave owes us for the Sky Bandit.
There's an exterior airlock we need to pull up to once we're free of the ship,
Reggie added.
Got some extra passengers to take aboard.
The entire ship flooded with the tense sound of brass, drums and violins. The heavier classical music replaced by the stirring battle anthem, Flight of the Shadow Bolts. This is it, ponies. The voice of Colonel Autumnleaf boomed over the music. This is a moment all of your training and all of your experience has prepared you for. This is the battle you were born for. It's time to separate the Pegasi from the Griffins. It's time to kick Red Eye's ass and teach him that crossing the Enclave, murdering our brothers and sisters, was his ultimate folly. We fight in the name of every Pegasus ignominiously massacred in the Splendid Valley sneak attack. The monitors along the walls came to life, the Enclave emblem replaced by a slowly scrolling names in red. Every Pegasus killed by the Splendid Valley balefire bomb. I forced myself not to look, not to read each name. I knew I should. I was responsible. But if I did, I also knew I wouldn't be able to go on. We fight in the name of our loved ones, our home, and our Enclave. As we made our way across the hangar deck towards one of the black and green armoured tanks, the flight of the shadow bolts began to crescendo. The hangar door growled open to the smoky yellow sky. Explosions of black smoke pockmarked the haze of anti-aircraft shells filled the sky. A squad of Pegasi in black carapace armour shot past the opening, in battle with a wing of dark green, shield-protected alicorns. I could hear the sounds of magical energy discharges and automatic gunfire from the world below, mixing with a nerve-wracking din. The first sky tanks and bombarding chariots took off, flying out of the throat of the ship and into the heart of the war. Calamity opened the largest sky tank we could find, one with multiple plasma cannons, the kind like the one Calamity had shot Topaz with, too big for even a battle saddle, and space for a dozen armoured soldiers. He pushed himself to the front, strapping himself into the flight harness while Reggie and I took up places in the back. I noted the name stenciled onto the side of the sky tank just before climbing aboard. The Tortoise. A pair of Enclave soldiers came trotting up to the back of the tortoise, their helmets in their muzzles. They had seen Calamity strapping in and were expecting a ride. Reggie tossed back her hood, becoming visible for just a moment, grinning as I closed the door on them.
Sorry, Bucks. This one's taken.
Their stunned expressions were priceless. Go now! I told Calamity, tossing back my own hood the moment the door was shut. I looked over the door, the pony in my head panicking as I realised I had no idea how to lock it. Now is good! Go now! I didn't want to give the 2 bucks time to recover, open the door, and gun us down. Calamity spread his wings inside the armoured enclosure of the tortoise's cockpit, pumping twice, and I felt the tank lift from the hangar floor. A moment later, we were shooting out the hangar door, the horizontal slit windows of the tortoise glowing with the sickly golden light of the ever-freeze dawn. Beneath us was a massive complex of metal, stone, and brown concrete. The cathedral. High in its centre rose an airy Gothic structure of steepled roofs, flying buttresses, and rosy-stained glass. Ringing out around it was a heavily fortified castle, thick walls, towers, battlements. Tower strongholds held anti-aircraft guns, identical to the ones that had once protected Friendship City. There was even a moat, and I could see the shadow of something the size of 3 dozen ponies swimming about in it. Beyond the castle's outer walls and moat, the Everfree forest was nothing but blackened ash and severed stumps for at least a mile in every direction. A deep gorge knifed through the land of 3 sides, spanned by only a single fortress-like bridge. The scorched land was filled with ponies. Not just dozens, not just hundreds. Thousands of ponies, wearing Red Eye's colours, were engaging the Enclave in a ferocious battle. Red Eye's troops fought from trenches and pillboxes. More soldiers lined the walls of the castle, pouring bullets into the sky. Red Eye's alicorns and griffins met the Pegasi in the skies. It still seemed like a horribly lopsided battle. Bombing wagons rained high explosives down on the fortress, from high enough above to be out of range. The raptors alone could level the cathedral with concentrated fire. Goddesses knew what the Overcast itself could do. 2 of the raptors from the Overcast had joined 4 more, encircling the cathedral, bombing it with heavy plasma fire. I assumed the 3rd raptor was busy hunting Raptor Lenticular. 3 of the raptors were showing signs of damage from the shelling. One of them was smoking badly and had begun to cant, drifting out of position. Calamity circled us around, deftly keeping us out of the line of heavy fire. We drew up to the brig airlock. Tracker already had it open, waiting for us. I opened the door of the tortoise as Calamity backed us up to the Overcast. The Thunderhead siege platform was barely moving now. Jumping from it to our sky tank would be more nerve-wracking than actually dangerous. I moved into position to help them. Regina climbed into the seat for one of the plasma cannons. The first pony, a light grey mare with a shockingly purple mane, moved up to the edge of the airlock. She gulped, her knees shaking, her brow beating with the effort not to look down. "It's okay," I coaxed. "You can do it." Our attention, and the attention of every pony in the battle, was suddenly wrenched downward by a horrific, Equestria-shaking bellow. Something huge, dark, and horrifying rose up from the cathedral, a black and monstrous shape against the smoke-filtered sun. Great, angry red eyes poured hatred down on us as it brutalized the air with massive leathery wings. Then, it moved towards one of the raptors, bellowing balefire. As it moved, I could make out pony-sized claws and spines, and the 2-tone green of its scales, marred by deep scars that looked more surgical than battle-born. I glimpsed an odd, mechanical glow coming from inside one of the wounds which hadn't fully healed. There was a dragon in the Everfree forest. And not just any dragon. The lunar fucking granddaddy of all dragons. An ancient dragon, so old, it must have already been a huge, gigantic, terrifying, enormous, totally all-grown-up dragon back when Spike was only a baby. And it was fighting on Red Eye's side. The dragon roared again, grasping the raptor in its claws, as 3 of the others turned their weapons towards it. Dragon killers, Calamity had called them. Well, this was their chance to prove themselves worthy of the title. The dragon blasted the captive raptor with choking black smoke, then howled as the other raptors lanced it with bright pastel beams of magical energy. It flicked its tail, producing massive spikes that glowed with eldritch energy, and lashed out at one of the attacking raptors, cutting deep grooves in its forward armor. My jaw hit the floor of the tortoise. Those spikes were magically enhanced. I stared at the dragon's unnatural glowing red eyes, and knew immediately who they reminded me of. Red Eye? Cybernetically? Enhanced? A dragon? I blinked, the little pony in my head petrified. Then, spun. Okay, that's it. We're getting down there, right now. I called out, wrapping the escaping prisoner ponies in my magic, and floating them unceremoniously into the tortoise. Calamity, get us the fuck out of this sky! I closed the door, apologizing to the prisoners as I pulled myself into another of the plasma cannon chairs. The chair and controls were made for a larger pony, and I had about as much skill with magical energy weapons as I did with sword fighting. But as long as I didn't manage to shoot the damn tank we were in, I figured even I could help. Reggie was already firing, taking shots at other sky tanks and Enclave bombing chariots. The high-pitched yelp of her plasma cannon was making my ears hurt.
Oh yeah!
Reggie shouted as a cacophony of one of her shots turned an Enclave bombing wagon into a cascading explosion of rainbow pyrotechnics. She was already swinging towards her next target before the fireworks had subsided.
I love me this turtle!
Tortoise! I corrected as I linked my pip leg into the turret, downloading the Sky Tank's tag and maximizing the value of my targeting spell.
Whatever!
She said with a dismissive wave of her wing.
Hey Calamity, can we keep it?
Her next 3 shots took out 2 Carapace armored Enclave Pegasi, freeing up very surprised looking alicorns. Some of Red Eye's troops along the cathedral wall opened fire on the tortoise as Calamity brought us close. I gasped in dismay as 2 of the escapees crumpled, dead, crimson flowers bursting across their bodies. Several of the other escapees screamed. The more level-headed pony stepped in, trying to prevent a panic. Tracker belted out a command, ordering everyone to lay flat on the floor and make themselves as small of a target as possible. I floated open one of the rucksacks filled with medical supplies as I looked around the interior of the tank. The bullets hadn't penetrated the tank's armor, so much as it ignored it completely. There weren't even bullet holes. Red Eye's troops were using bullets enchanted with an armor bypass. I turned my plasma cannon on the troops along the wall, trying to clear a path for us to land without losing any more ponies. Suddenly, between that and the dragon, the battle was looking a whole lot less lopsided. The dragon roared overhead.